Good afternoon and good morning. Welcome back to the Charlie and Mike webinar series. Today is part 6 of our 17-part webinar series hosted by the National Veteran Small Business Coalition. I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. And again, we'd like to thank BAA Systems, Associated Veteran, SB Liftoff, and US Veteran Magazine for being our sponsors. So today's runtime for the webinar is 1 hour and it's being recorded. If you have any questions during the webinar, please type them in the box on your screen. If you're not able to get to your questions, we will post the questions on the Charlie Mike webinar series webpage. And guess what? I am your moderator for today. Scott Jensen is a very busy man trying to get some things going with the NVSBC, a lot of our policies and new vision and mission. So from now on, it's between Scott and myself, and we're going to be moderating the webinar series for the rest of the year. So I'd like to welcome my good friend Gloria Larkin, who is a Chief Executive Officer for TargetGov. I've been working with Gloria for the last 12 years, with different jobs that I had for the last few years. First, I met her while I was in the Air Force, and she spoke at the National Veteran Conference in Las Vegas. And then when I retired, I went to work for a veteran small business startup, and she was our consultant. And there were a lot of growing pains growing that business. And then when I switched to my conference management job for the government, I had Gloria on speed dial, and I always asked her, "Hey, Gloria, are you available for a conference?" And she always jumps in and assisted me with many of the government conferences I used to manage. So now that with the NVFCC, I call on Gloria to help us out with our webinar series. So Gloria, thank you for supporting the NVSBC and being a great friend. So I will turn the floor over to you.
Earl, it is always my pleasure. And yes, we have lived through a lot of things together, definitely. So today is the time that we're going to put into place something that is changed in the federal government marketplace. And it is, how do you influence CPARS and use your own quality assurance process to win more contracts? Next slide. And as you mentioned, I am Gloria Larkin, president of TargetGov. Go ahead into the next slide as well. And in addition to 24 years in the federal government marketplace, I've authored 2 books, one of which is the Veterans Business Guide. And I'd like to give away 2 of these veteran business guides to 2 of the attendees today. In order to possibly get one of these books, all you have to do is shoot us an email during today's session, and we will have the email later on in the slide deck, but let me give it to you right now. It's my name, Gloria Larkin, with the initial TG after it, at targetgov.com. So if you shoot us an email, we'll do 2 things. We'll enter your name to win, and actually also, AJ, if you could pop that into the chat so people know what email to use to possibly win one of the books, that would be terrific. And a fun fact to know about me, that I've jumped out of a perfectly good airplane and swam with the sharks and barracudas and stingrays. So that's what I do in my off hours when there's no COVID. But let's jump into CPARS right now for you. Our agenda today is, how does Contractor Performance Assessment Rating, or CPARS, impact current bids? And how do you start controlling the contract CPARS ratings. How do you influence it? How do you control it? This is going to be the secret of future wins for you in the federal government marketplace. How can you use your CPARS to actually expand your capabilities beyond that current contract or contracts that you have? And then how do you achieve the same results if you have no CPARS? So if you are not the prime contractor, how do you get similar results? And we are going to tackle all of this today. So let's start with the first poll. And if Earl's going to start that, if you go ahead and answer on the poll, how often do your contracting officers use CPARS upon completion, or the old legacy PPARS? So if you go ahead and put your answer in here. Come on, Ivan. Go ahead, Lou. Hi, Norris and Sterling. Everybody go ahead and put in an answer here. And then let's go ahead and, all right, we've got one more second. Let's close the poll. So from an answer standpoint, wow, it looks like occasionally is 50%, often 25%, always 25%. So this is not unusual. But the challenge is, if it's not always, then you don't gain the benefit of the CPARS rating. So why are these systems critical? Next slide, please. Well, first of all, the federal acquisition regulations, our ever beloved FAR, does require that our performance as prime contractors be collected in order to be used in future source selection evaluations. And the officials, the source selection committees or groups, then rely on these timely and clear evaluations in contractor performance to help them decide on who they may choose to be the next awarded contractor. And of course, the information is critical, but if we're not receiving CPARS, if the contracting officer is not doing this, or worse, they're just giving satisfactories as a perfunctory answer, this can really hurt our possibility of winning in the future. So how does CPARS impact current bids? On the next slide, let's go ahead into that. And the Contractor Performance Assessment Rating System, lovingly called CPARS, is run because that there is a belief that past experience is the greatest predictor of future success or future failure. And you know that the government is risk adverse by its nature, and legal system behind government contracting is absolutely risk adverse. So the reliance upon CPARS or a similar reporting system, report card system, is mandatory to win substantial contracts moving forward. And it actually protects you as a contractor if you know what to do, if you know how to handle what we will be handling today. And unfortunately, if there's an issue of contract failure, you realize that you could have, of course, the contract terminated. You have legal and financial liabilities if that happens. And you may also be debarred or disbarred from doing future federal contracts. So this is an extremely important scenario, whether you are pursuing as a prime, a sub, or a teaming partner. And remember, you can ask questions in the QA on your screen. So if you'd like to ask questions, look for the question or chat function on your screen so that we can answer them directly live. And if you want to ask questions, if you're listening to this as a recording, you can always email us here at TargetGov, and we would be very happy to answer you directly for any questions that you think of after the live session. Next slide, please. So when does the government use CPARS? This is important for you to know because they don't use it on all contracts. When the simplified acquisition threshold is exceeded, normally that threshold is $250,000. However, right now we are in a national emergency, and therefore that simplified acquisition threshold has increased to $750,000. So any prime contract over $750,000 should have a CPARS rating at the end of the contract. But it can be as long as a year after the end of that contract before the contracting officer is mandated to put a CPARS rating in. However, many contracting officers leave. From the time they finish your contract and before that next year is up, they're off to somewhere else or retired. I was talking to one contracting officer, and he said that his office used to have over 150 people in his entire office, and they're now down to 43. That is a massive drop. And he was saying that they're not anticipating it returning to the 150 ever again, that they have to function with fewer people moving forward, which is why all of this is being driven into an artificial intelligence or automated CPARS way of recording or reporting contractor performance. So it's not unusual that you may not get a CPARS rating, even if it's required. And the third bullet down, this automated performance collection capability. Automated is the key word there. In the past, this was not automated. The government is trying to automate as much as they can. They're using artificial intelligence tools as well in order to help them in the whole acquisition process, which is why we wanted to talk about the importance and the new way that CPARS is being used moving forward. So on this chart, you will get the PowerPoint as an attendee as well. So you'll be able to see this chart in much greater detail. I know that it might be a little tough to read every single line on the screen right now, but we'll be happy to send you this PowerPoint if you need it to see all of the layers from architect, engineers, through construction, through IT systems, services, as well as products, and what requires a CPARS and what does not require a CPARS. But we today are going to talk to you about, even if the contract does not require CPARS, how do you as a contractor use a system in-house that you own, you control, you don't have to pay anybody anything to start this in-house, and we are going to give it to you today as part of the NVSBC Charlie Mike program. We're very excited about that. Norris mentions the lazy government individual who's filling the blocks on CPARS. Norris, we're going to talk about that today. That's a real issue, and we're going to help you gain control over that. But it will take effort on your part, but it will help you definitely. Sterling, yes, I believe that right now, because we're in a national emergency, that FAR stipulates that as long as it's over the simplified acquisition threshold, which right now is $750,000, that's when CPARs are required. Normally it's $250,000, but I believe now, because of the national emergency, that is increased to $750,000. Once we're through the COVID national emergency, it'll drop back down to $250,000. Let's go to the next slide, please. So we have another poll. Now this is for you. How often do you conduct a customer quality assurance meeting? So this is not CPARS. This is you conducting this meeting with your customers. So go ahead and let us know. Click the button on the poll. You can see that poll pop up on your screen. Never. Do you do it at the end of the contract? Do you do it yearly? Every 6 months? Quarterly? And you may never do it. That is not unusual in the federal space. Okay, we'll give another 2 seconds. Let's go ahead and close the poll. Thank you. So the results. This is interesting. Never, 20%. At the end of the contract or closeout, 40%. Yearly, 0. Every 6 months, 20. And quarterly, 20%. So I will tell you that the more often you conduct a customer quality assurance meeting where you are tracking their responses, and I'm going to give you that format in just a few slides on exactly what to ask and where, even more importantly, to record their responses. This is going to set the stage for you to accomplish 2 things. One is not to rely on those lazy contracting officers or busy, let's say busy contract, because they're busy, 43 out of 150 left, they're busy. They may not be lazy at all. I don't want to disparage the folks, because they're generally really good folks. However, we want to take it out of their responsibility to think up how they're going to rate you, and instead have you help them control what the ratings are. So how do we do this? Let's go to the next slide, please, after the poll. The evaluation criteria first should include metrics. If you can possibly include numbers, metrics regarding your performance. Did you start on time? Have you made the milestones so far on the contract? Do you have any issues, and how long did it take you to resolve those issues? These are all metrics that in turn become proof, which are quantitative measures demonstrating your success. Why do we want proof that is in a metric form? Because that is not subjective. It is not They love us. I'm sure we're going to win the next contract. When it's quantitative, when there are metrics behind what you're doing, your chances of receiving exceptional and very good ratings skyrocket, as opposed to receiving satisfactory or lower ratings. In the federal government lexicon, subjective information is based on personal information, opinions, interpretations. This is not acceptable from a FAR standpoint. Even though they love you, that is not a reason to get an exceptional ratings. Emotions are not coming into play. It is ill-suited in the government's frame of mind for decision making. So that's why quantitative measurements are going to be your friend and your power moving forward. Next slide, please. In evaluation criteria, we all often think that CPARS or some other system like CPARS is the end all and be all to how we are evaluated. But there's other ways that come into play, especially as these contracts get larger and larger and larger. So these criteria will also include references, and you may be surprised at who some of these reference points of contacts are. They're not always other customers. Your reference points of contacts could be your suppliers, your financial institutions, even business and trade associations like the NVSBC. Of course, your commercial clients and your subcontractors can also be references, but when the government, because of its risk adverse nature, if they want to find out everything they can about you, they will, and they are using now artificial intelligence tools that will data scrape to get some of this information. You know what's out there in social media, what is happening from a report card standpoint in CPARS. But if you don't have CPARS, then what do you do? Let's start addressing some of this. So let's go to the next slide, please. How does the government rate past performance? We have 2 slides on this. The first slide has, of course, a FAR reference because this is the regulation, and you would be well served to read it when you're trying to best create the highest past performance ratings that you can. But then you'd be surprised at that second bullet that you have adequate financial resources or the ability to obtain them. This has become how can I say, critical issue in small businesses who pursue very large contracts that they have never performed on similar sized contracts. This is a huge red flag for contracting officers. If you're performing a $36 million contract and the biggest one you've won is $5 million, that's happening today for a client of ours. So I'm living this right now. You must have documentation from your financial institutions that you do have the required credit line or other resources to be able to fund the contract until you start getting paid on it. And most companies do not take that into account in their CPARS like reporting system. The ability to comply with the required or proposed delivery is a given in the federal space. I can't tell you how many people think one of their differentiators is that they are always on time and and within budget. And my first response to them is, well, duh. That's a given in the federal government marketplace. You must be on time. You must be within the budget. Otherwise, you have not performed according to the contract. And this is often an eye opener in many companies who are entering the federal government marketplace. Satisfactory performance record. They cannot award to companies with unsatisfactory records unless there's some sort of compelling reason, which I know that everybody has some crazy stories about some of the scenarios that may have happened during COVID, where contracts were awarded to people with no record whatsoever. But, I think they're all being investigated now, because integrity and business ethics also come into play in this world. And that's where the association kind of membership comes in, because, folks who are active in associations like NVSBC and others, chambers of commerce, etc., generally are more open with their integrity and business ethics. Do you have the ability to obtain the required equipment or facilities? Again, that can relate to financial wherewithal, or to actual, in times of COVID, that was an issue because shipping was so far delayed for many companies who were really counting on products to come in a timely basis and did not. So thankfully, many contracting officers were able to adjust the timeline on some contracts. But if you did not reach out and let your contracting officer know you were having those problems, then you'll just be non-compliant with your contract if you were not able to deliver on time. Let's go to the next slide. The second half of this, more FAR references in determining the responsibility. Note that it says your SAM registrations and affiliated certifications. We've seen companies pursuing contracts that their SAM has expired, and it's illegal to award to a company with an expired SAM, something as basic as that. And your SBA profile has past performance records that you control. You put that information in there. No one else does. So this is especially important for small businesses, and this is an action item for you right now. If you have not checked your SBA profile for your past performance records, please do that. Action item as soon as today is over with, to check your own and make sure you have your own past performance filled out at the end of your SBA profile. If you're not sure where to do this, shoot me an email. We'll be happy to walk you through. Just because you're attending today's session, we'll be happy to walk you through this. You can see the rest of these are either internal to your company, such as your financial resources, the personnel related information, financial data for the company. All of that is internal to your own company. So you have total control over what information gets shared there. But then outside of your own company, there are commercial sources that the federal government may use in order to find you. It might be a DUNS rating. It could be any number. It could be references from other national associations, and any other available public or non-public. It could be subscription-based services that they may be using to find contractors. And the last one, OMG, social media. Yes, the government is checking people out on social media. And with the latest news that we had on January 6th on what happened there, too many people are going to find that their social media posts are affecting their federal contracts moving forward, and rightfully so. Let's go ahead to the next slide, please. Your evaluation ratings. Now, I know that this is tiny and you cannot read all of the words here, but you will get the slides. And what I want you to know, we bulleted what's in that gray column. These are the official ratings that the federal government wants you to use. So officially, in anything that you do, when you start an internally created customer service process, which you should do, we'll talk about it more in a few minutes, these are the ratings you should use. Unsatisfactory, marginal, satisfactory, very good, exceptional. Don't use any others. Use the ones that the government uses. That way, when you start incorporating this into your own customer service process, you'll be mimicking exactly what the government is using. And as you create this as your own internal process, you're actually starting a document that you can then share with the contracting officer that already incorporates a rating system for him or her to use. This is how you start controlling what your CPARS say. Now, of course, you cannot edit your CPARS. You cannot put it in. The contracting officer must do that. But if you are documenting every single meeting you have with the contracting officer and documenting the metrics, that will take you to very good and exceptional. You're giving them proof that they can rate you as such. But I have some realistic news for you first. On the next slide, this is the first of 4 slides that will show the trend in CPARS ratings. Each one of these slides will address a different area in CPARS. And this report analysis was performed by GovCon RX. You can see that at the second to last item in the first column. And their raw data was directly out of CPARS.gov. And I validated this before I put these slides in here. So what this is telling you, let's look first at the solid blue bar in the middle of the screen. This is quality. Everybody says we have the highest quality. Well, no, CPARS doesn't say that. In the rating system, what is actually happening over the last 6 years, where they all started out from exceptional, very good, and satisfactory being pretty close together in 2014, with exceptional being highest. Exceptional's green is the green line. So look what happened from 2016 to last year. Exceptional went down by a market amount, whereas I'm sorry, very good is green. That was my bad. Very good is green. So the very good being green going downward, the red is satisfactory. Look at that, how much that gained. It went from about 32% to well over 43%. So satisfactory ratings have skyrocketed. It's the easiest thing to do. You don't win by being satisfactory. But look at what has happened to exceptional. That's blue. It went from 30% down to low 20%. That's the blue line on exceptional rating. So this is, on the quality standpoint, this is not good for us. Earlier, many more companies were receiving exceptional and very good ratings. Now they've dropped and satisfactory has increased. This is in the quality area. Let's go into management on the next slide. The blue bar, up at the top of the blue bar, it says management at the top. And again, starting off, they were much closer together back in 2014, with satisfactory being the lowest in red, exceptional the next layer in blue, and very good in green. But it flipped. Look at this. The red exceptional rating has skyrocketed, whereas exceptional and very good are tanking through the year. So this is not just this year it's happened. It's not a COVID thing. This is absolutely an overall trend that has been proven out. So we looked at quality, we looked at management. Let's look now at schedule. You know, everybody says we stay on time, right? On the next slide, let's take a look at schedule in the blue bar, schedule at the top. Once again, starting about the same back in 2014. And now you're seeing it's consistent. Red goes up, blue and green go down. This is not good for contractors. It just means everybody's marked satisfactory with no proof of it being a great contractor experience or a poor contractor experience. And finally, let's look at the next slide, which is cost control. You know, everybody says they stay under budget, but here again, everybody is getting satisfactory, period. That's it. With the red line indicating how satisfactory has increased, and the blue and green lines for exceptional and very good again falling down. So we have to fight this. This is what is really happening in CPARS. It's one thing to get a CPARS rating. It's totally something else to get an exceptional or a very good rating. So let's talk about how to plan for that. Let's go ahead. Yeah, yes, Sterling. So of 100%, less than 45 of them are exceptional or very good. Most of them are satisfactory. That's the easiest way to say you did what the contract said. That's what it means. Most companies, according to the contracting officer, are doing what the contract said, no more and no less. And that's not going to win you more contracts. So let's talk about how to plan for this exceptional rating. The first thing is know what you need to do before you begin work on the contract. You would ask this at the kickoff meeting. What kickoff meeting, you're saying? Yes, you should have a kickoff meeting for every single contract, not with other contractors, but with the entire source selection committee. And how do you get that kickoff meeting? You don't call it a kickoff meeting. You call it a debrief. You ask for it immediately upon the award of the contract. You ask for a post-award debrief. And you're thinking, Gloria, I don't need a debrief. I won. I'm good. This is what I mean. Have the debrief as the awardee, because at that meeting you have the entire source selection committee participating, and this is where you ask them their grading criteria on the contract, because there may be no other way for you to get it. This is where you ask them, what do we need to achieve in order to be considered exceptional? And then you would start setting deliberate goals to get there. You won't start being exceptional. You'll more than likely start being satisfactory if you're performing according to the contract. And that's what most companies do. We perform according to what the contract says. To be exceptional, you have to perform above that. And the middle bullet is track and report. You know, if you end up completing a project sooner, or you completed it under budget, don't assume they are recording this. If you record it, this is much, much better for you to be able to control what is going to go into your CPARS ratings. And then you want to send your verbiage to the contracting officer. So every time you have a customer quality assurance meeting, you are going to record what that contracting officer said to you. And this is not a survey. Don't use Survey Monkey, please. Please do not send an email and say, fill in my survey, please. Don't do it. You're just hurting yourself if you do it. This is a phone call. This is where you should be talking to your contracting officer, your program person, anyone who's involved in the performance of the contract from your customer's point of view. Always provide the supporting verbiage to your reporting official before they're supposed to complete their CPARS. Ideally, it's right after you finish. You know, if you're having these meetings once a month all the way along, and it's been an annual contract, once a month they should be getting these from you every single step of the way, and hopefully tracking you from moving from satisfactory to very good and why, and moving to exceptional and why, and what those metrics are, because by law, they have to prove it also. Let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, what are the areas rated? This is exactly the 7 areas that the federal government rates. And you would be well served to now incorporate these exact 7 areas into your customer quality assurance plan. Follow their format, follow their roadmap. And in just a minute, you're going to see exactly what I mean by that, so that you can even brand it as your company's quality assurance program, which then mimics exactly what CPARS looks like. No one has been able to do this before. This has not been so crystal clear. Now, because they want to automate this, it is becoming much more transparent, and you are some of the very few companies that will know to do this moving forward. This is not wide knowledge. You are getting something that is secret sauce right now. So these 7 areas: quality assurance, the schedule and the timeliness of performance. What exactly does that mean? Customer satisfaction, how do you measure that? Oh, we love that contractor, but what does that love mean? How do you put a metric to how much they love you? What is your management, your personnel, your labor plan of quality assurance? And remember the cost and financial management. most companies totally do not have that in there. They just don't even think of putting that into their customer service or quality assurance program. But the cost and financial management is a critical factor in mitigating risk for you winning more contracts. If safety and security are an issue, well, let me back up a minute. If safety is an issue like construction, that will be mandatory, but everybody has security now. You we all know CMMC. If you're a federal government contractor, you must deal with security issues. How are you dealing with it? Whether it's in IT or staffing or construction, every part of the supply chain now is mandated. How do you deal with that? And how do you measure it and report on it? And finally, any other general questions that aren't asked. So, as a real example, let's go ahead into the next slide. Now, we did not make this up. This came directly from the government. And this is a sample of the customer satisfaction questions that are asked. To what extent were the end users satisfied with the project? And you're going to think, well, everybody's going to mark off VG or E because they love us. They are required by law. If they mark off excellent for E or very good for VG, if they mark off either one of those, they must write out the reason why and the metrics to prove it. So it's so much easier for them just to mark S, satisfactory, all the way down. So much easier. It does not cost them any additional time or thought energy through this. But if you are asking, to what extent were the end users satisfied with the project? And they say, well, everybody was satisfied. It was satisfactory. Yeah, thank you very much. And you would answer them, I appreciate that feedback. I'll mark down satisfactory. For our next update, what would it take for us to get to very good? And then wait for the answer. Because you want them to tell you how you can move from satisfactory to very good. And if you really want to set the stage, you'll have thought about this ahead of time and you will ask them, so for us to get to a very good rating, would it be appropriate if we, and then put whatever you thought about in there, and then listen to what their answer is, because at the next meeting, you want to be able to say to them, we were able to improve our response on the end user satisfaction. And here's a couple of notes from Mary Jones and Bill Smith, and they documented as end users how we were able to improve our response. So do you think that we've moved up to very good now? Of course you did. Mark that off and put that documentation in. This also serves as a beautiful way to build rapport with your clients, because you're listening to what their needs are. You're not just saying, here's the survey monkey, please fill it out, thank you very much, and they're never going to do it. This actually, if you ask these questions, listen to their responses and plan your next steps, this will help you move from that satisfactory red zone up into either very good or exceptional ratings. So for each of these bullets, like B says contractor, I'm reading when I look over here, was reasonable and cooperative in dealing with your staff, including the ability to resolve disagreements, disputes, responsive to administrative reports. Oh, we all love those administrative reports in business-like communications. This is not my wording. This is the government's wording. The GSA has created this to be used through all agencies as part of this automated response system that you now have access to. And then to what C is to what extent were you, the contractor, cooperative, business-like, and concerned with the interest of the customer? This is where you can show him, well, we've received an email directly from the program manager stating that one of the team called in sick, and within 3 hours we had a replacement on site and were able, or we had a replacement remote working within 30 minutes, and we were able to resolve the situation immediately. But without that documentation, those little scenarios disappear. Nobody remembers them because we're all just too busy. So this is how you move the needle up from exceptional to, up from satisfactory to very good and exceptional. To help you do this, and we're almost done. To help you do this, we are giving you, everybody has free access to this. And on the next slide, we have the TargetGov CPARS tracker system, which is an Excel base, so everybody can use it. This is not software. This is an Excel-based system that actually tracks every single one of these elements. We've built it and we're giving it to you. And if you're listening to this as a recording and we don't know who you are, you need to shoot us an email, the questions@targetgov.com, or you can shoot me the email. You'll have my email in just a few minutes. We'll make sure you get access to this CPARS tracker tool, which is pretty extensive, and it goes through every single one of these ratings in a different tab with a tracking system of when the meeting was, what was said, who was there. All of that is part of what we're giving you today, and we're pretty excited about being able to support the NVSBC members in this way, which with such a powerful tool. So our handouts to you are going to be pretty extensive. On the next slide, Earl, if you would, let's go. The tracker that I just mentioned, the CPARS guidance, the brand new CPARS guidance process. It was just developed at the end of 2020. We are giving that to you, as well as the user manual, so that you can have that. And then the FSS past performance questionnaire, which has all 7 of those categories and how the government will ask for those responses. We're giving that to you as well. So you can either email me directly or the questions at targetgov.com for the download link if you're listening to this as a recording. So let's go ahead into the question slide on the next slide. And it also has the email address for Gloria Larkin TG at targetgov.com. So either questions or Gloria Larkin. And AJ, if you want to bring in the name of the 2 folks who have been chosen to have the Veterans Business Guide shipped to them, I'd be happy to take those names and announce them. Earl, do you have questions?
Of course I do. Okay, so why should I go through all this effort? Isn't CPARS enough?
Yeah, well, if you're a subcontractor, you'll never have CPARS. So there's that. If you have prime contracts in the private sector or with state or city or county government, you'll never have CPARS. So there's that. So the reason to go through all of this is, first, if you have private sector clients, you'll need it. If you have subcontracts, you'll need to do this. If you have contracts with other government entities like city, county, state, or local governments, you'll need it because none of those have CPARS. Then when you have CPARS, it sets the stage for a very good or exceptional rating, even if that contracting officer leaves. Because if you're meeting with them monthly and you're doing these reports monthly, thank you so much, AJ. If you're doing these reports monthly, then you have documented, proven metrics that will push you up from satisfactory into very good and exceptional. I hope that helps.
Yes, it did. So that's great. So let's say I have experience in the state and private sectors, and none in the federal market space. Do you have to wait until I get a federal contract to start doing this?
No, you should do it now. You should start now, today, because first of all, when you get into a company habit of quality assurance meetings with your clients, good stuff comes out of that, no matter what that is. It's feedback from your clients. It's realizing that, ooh, maybe they don't love us as much as I thought they loved us. Everything good comes out of this because you will get better. And it gives you the opportunity to brand it as something, a name that you come up with for your company. You know, the Acme Quality Assurance Program or Platinum Program, whatever you want to name it. And you know, if you brand or trademark this process, it also can set the stage for sole source ability moving forward. Pretty exciting.
Yeah, yeah. So let's just say I've never gotten a higher rating than satisfactory. Okay. I'm hearing that the CEOs are not given a higher rating. So will this make a difference?
Well, it's proven. You're right. If you're getting satisfactory all the way along, the vast majority of other contractors are getting satisfactory as well. And the reason is, well, there's multiple reasons. They might not have time to document anything other than satisfactory. They may perceive you as only satisfactory. They may not have a clue what's happening really with the end customer and the program level people. So this is why it's definitely important for you to start this whole internal quality customer service process. That is exactly the same as the government CPARS, because then when you send them an email and say, this is what we've done, they will file that in your company project folder because you're actually doing their CPARS for them. And then at the end of the contract, they have it very easy in just copying that last CPARS from you where you've taken it from satisfactory up to very good to exceptional. They just copy all of those documentations and the metrics, and you have a legitimate, proven, exceptional rating.
Great, great. So let's just say that I'm the incumbent and my client just loves me to death. So isn't this all redundant?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I can tell you from experience that we were called in by a company who was the incumbent and had been working for this particular agency for a number of years on a project. It came up for recompete and it was theirs to lose because, you know, the customer loved them. Well,
Mhm.
they lost it. And when they had the debrief, that's when they called us in a panic. We had never worked with them before that debrief. And they said, we thought we were going to win. This really hurts our company. We lost it. What do we do now? And I
Yeah.
said, well, we have to do the debrief and then hear what they said. And they had never done quality assurance. They had never checked anything with that customer. And that customer, in fact, did not love them. As a matter of fact, they could not wait to get somebody else in there because this vendor was not understanding how unhappy the customer was.
Yeah.
You know, and it's human nature to not be confrontational. So without having those regular customer service meetings, there's no way for you to know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Great.
have the two winners
Okay.
right here. We have Norris Middleton and Thomas, is it Chappell or Chappell? Chappell. You both will have this shipped to you. AJ will reach out if we need your mailing address and we'll get it shipped out this week.
Outstanding. Well, Gloria, thank you so much. You, AJ, and your team. Like I said, working with you for 10 years has been wonderful. So again, thank you so much for your time. And we get to see you one more time for Charlie Mike in a few months. So
yes,
looking forward to that.
It'll be another powerful session. So I'll look
yes.
forward to talking to everybody then. Thanks again, Earl.
All right, thank you. So all attendees, thank you so much for joining us. We will get the recording and the slides to you as soon as possible. We've been having a couple of issues with our website, getting things updated. So once that's fixed, you will get the slides and the presentation. So until next week, thank you so much, and we will see you soon. Take care.
Bye-bye, everybody.